Yo, how's it going?
Yo, hello?
Yo, that's it. That's crazy. That's Indian. I can't believe I got thrown off by that. This guy Marlo now. Is he Ti or whatever the fuck?
Who?
Is
CI.
he yeah, no, not Ti the rapper. Is he targeted individual?
Um, I don't know. He seems like I think he's just some Chad, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he.
What about Malikia?
Oh, he could be targeted, bro.
Probably, right? It's a good
Yeah,
chance.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Mm.
One second. So, just like, what's this? Hold on, I'm trying to find. One second. I'm trying to find it. One second. Is this the audio? Hold on. I'm just looking at something. I'll be right. Okay. Do you want to list? Do you want to watch the animated version or like the pure audio?
Sure.
Okay.
Animated fun.
Okay. Let's go. Just let me know if you need me to pause and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Talmud is an ancient text written around 500 CE and is a massively important work in Judaism. It's around 40 books long, written almost entirely in ancient Aramaic, and dictates most of all of Jewish law and tradition to this day. But what exactly is the book? Who wrote it? And why was it written? And
Oh, bro. All
Hmm.
right. It's gonna be pissed off with this one.
of course, what does it say exactly inside? To begin with, the Torah is basically the central Jewish text. It contains the 5 books of Moses, the later books of prophets, and the even later books of writings, commonly referred to as the Tanakh as an acronym for each of these texts. However, it's a lesser known fact, yet a foundational aspect of Jewish belief and theology, that there were 2 Torahs given at Mount Sinai of a sort. The written Torah, which is the above referenced text, and the oral Torah, which was not written down and instead passed down teacher to student from Moshe to Joshua all the way down to this day. There's actually a precise list of teacher to student, name by name, starting from Moshe at Mount Sinai down to some of the later Talmudic sages up to around the 5th century or so, listed in one of the tractates of these books. The general notion of the oral tradition was to explain and expound on a lot of the aspects of the Torah, to tell you more precisely how to follow their commandments. For instance, the obligation to wear tefillin is given in the Torah, as it says, "You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be a reminder between your eyes." But the exact makeup and process of tefillin, what they look like, how they're made, how to wear them, etc., is explained in the oral tradition. So that's how it went for several hundred years. Then they ran into a bit of an issue. The first temple of Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians, and the Jewish people were scattered all across the Middle East. They eventually reformed, but a while later, it happened again, now by the Romans, and the destruction of the second temple. Hundreds of thousands of people died in the wars that followed, and the Jewish people were scattered all across, a large population remaining in Jerusalem and a new one forming in Babylon. So, new schools were formed, and as the same information got taught, time passed, and people realized they had run into a pretty severe issue. Basically, throughout all of the chaos of the last 100 years or so, and throughout all the diaspora, many schools were formed, each of which was teaching the same pieces of information in theory. However, now, as everybody was on their own and they didn't have a centralized region where all the schools were discussing and teaching the same traditions and laws, a game of broken telephone began to form of a sort, spanning across several centuries. The general laws remained the same, but little variances in tradition, which then multiplied over the following generations, proceeded to worsen over time, and then, after a while longer, you had hundreds of schools teaching very different material. The laws used to be universal, precise, and accepted, but after everything that happened, now just about every single school and city had their own variations in their sets of laws. But there was a truth in there somewhere. It's just that nobody knew who was right exactly, and everybody thought it was them. So the first step of resolution was instituted by the sage Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, who helped pen the Mishnah, an earlier text, which essentially just serves to record all the different opinions, so things can't change any further and get worse. It was also the first real time that the oral tradition had been written down, the lack of which had led to this whole issue to begin with. I mean, there was no original text to consult for this, everything was literally word of mouth, but not any longer. Now it was written down, but it's not super practical because it's essentially a giant list of opinions from sages or schools that disagree with each other on about every single topic in Jewish life.
And this is what I was thinking, bro. Like, um, as like a light triad male, like if you're a light triad, right? Like, you know, what's the next step? You know what I'm saying? As a man, you know, what are you supposed to? What kind of archetype are you supposed to fall into, right? You know. And I was thinking of this. Hold on. And this is what I was thinking, that the next thing that you fall into is this. So 1 second. So as a man, if you're a light triad male, you know, and maybe you're thinking, man, you're looking around and you're seeing like, damn, you know, I kind of feel out of place. I feel like I don't really fit into this world, you know, like, you know, I'm more of a light triad guy, you know. I don't really want to step on people, or I don't really have a desire to really hurt people or cause triumph, you know. I mean, of course, you know, get backs are get backs, you know. There's nothing wrong with vengeance, but like still like you don't really have a desire to like just to really hurt people and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? And in this world where it's like, because remember, I'm not necessarily saying that. What I'm saying is that, you know, this world is very brutal. Like, you know, like, bro, like we may live in like this
Oh,
safer society.
I'm not trying to interrupt. Yep. For whoever watching, I can verify for that, bro. We'll have many stories to verify BS like that. Just see it, just watch what other people do to each other. I mean, this is hell, man. This is definitely, hell, man. Like after so-called Eve, transgression and stuff like that. What they said the world is, man. Yeah, man. This is an evil world, man.
It is, and
Anyone who grows you up with Disney and telling you this, it's a good and evil, good versus evil. No, it's evil. It's not no good versus evil. That's bullshit. It's evil on top of evil. Evil's thriving. Evil rules. And good is like playing survival
pretty
mode.
much.
You know, that's what's more like than just good and evil sounds like two equally powerful forces. Just where it's good portions of each. At least it's evil. That's it. And good is just trying to find its place and squeezing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, literally, because it's like, bro, because it's like I'm not necessarily saying like, oh, people are this. What I'm saying is just that, we because we live in like this society, we're just like we think that it's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? We think that, oh, humans are not that different to like the animal kingdom, and it's like, bro, like people, we have this idea, we have this idealism in our head, but it's like, no, that's not necessarily true. Like humans, the animal kingdom and the human kingdom is very, very similar. Like there is predators, there is prey, there is hunt. It's very brutal. Like, think about it. Like after Adam and Eve fell, right? Think about like what our ancestors were doing, Adam and Eve, after they fell. Like think about how brutal it was trying to survive in the wilderness. You know what I'm saying? It's just like having to kill animals to survive, and like this world is very, very brutal. You know what I'm saying? And we sometimes forget that it is because we live in like a safer society. But no, bro, this is a brutal world. Very animalistic, cold, barbaric kind of world.
So much for safer. That's for the suburbs kids. That's for like the suburbans and the good lifers. Man, if you live in the hood or if you live in like a moderately urban area where say you probably not in the hood, but you live in like some part of the inner city like New York or something, man. Or you're close by a hood, man. You see where things go down, man. You know what I'm saying? It is safer than regular. It's still society, but yeah, it's still like it's rough, man. Like you see these suburbans, that's like a nice, nice golfing, upper middle class. Of course they think everything's all safe and sweet, you know? Like I'm gonna be real with you, bro. Like bro, I'll be real with you. Believe it or not, bro, it's a lot of light triad suburban people, like upper middle class and middle class kids. It's a lot of light triad suburban people, bro, that I meet. And of course they probably naturally are like that, but it's also due to least no resistance, like no kind of traumatization. You know what I'm saying?
Honestly, bro, it's a mask, bro. I'm telling you, it's not what you think. Most are dark
Well,
triad,
I
bro.
was talking
Just
about the kids, but you
oh,
go
like,
ahead. Now you go ahead.
oh yeah, no, bro. It's literally, I'm telling you, bro. Literally, it's a mask. Like them, if you're around them for long enough, you'll see like, bro, it's just they're just this dark triad, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like bro, to run across someone that's truly light triad. Because remember, like to run across someone that's actually light triad, bro, is extreme. It's actually rare. You know what I'm
You
saying?
can't
Like,
make me think that like my behavior is that fucking rare, bro. Like you can't make me really believe
bro, I'm
that. Like
telling you, bro, because
it's
it's
hard
like
to find.
the only reason why people follow the law because they have to. It's not because they want
I
to.
don't. I'm. You know what's crazy? I always
Hmm.
thought to myself that I don't need no law to tell me not to do weird kind of things. Now
Hmm.
I ain't gonna lie. I probably would sneak a few snacks here and there. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie without the law, but I wouldn't just completely be stealing a bunch of the shit. You know what I'm saying? So I always thought that to myself. Like I don't need a law to like keep me. Like I never needed jail. Like I never needed to tell myself, "Oh, you boy, try not to. You don't want to go to jail." Like I never needed. I never needed that. I just didn't need to be doing it. Period. Jail or not, getting caught or not. But you're
Because,
saying
bro,
most
like
people are not like that.
someone that's light triad, like if the opportunity was there to steal, they wouldn't do it. Like if, for example, it's about the intention, like the heart. Is the heart pure or not? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
if there was an opportunity to steal, right, and you could get away with it, if you are truly light
I
triad, you
wouldn't
wouldn't
do
do
it.
it.
I wouldn't.
Exactly.
I wouldn't do it.
That means you're light triad. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't
Like
do it
light triad,
because yeah,
light triad comes
yeah.
out when there when the opportunity to like if you get away with like you know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Like this is about the intent
Like someone handing you your
of the
wallet,
heart. You know?
like someone handing you your wallet that fell out your pocket.
Yeah, if exactly if that's someone like for and if you let's just say you knew 100% it wouldn't come back to bite you. If you return that wallet to the guy, you're a light triad. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. It's just that initial desire to do good things.
I
You know
wish
what
it
I'm
was more common.
saying? Nah, bro. It's I'm telling you, it's not like
I know it's not, but I just wish it was. I wish it was.
yeah, me too, me too. But remember, like this world is like a brutal place. So like even to just become light triad, to be born light triad, or is just a miracle in and of itself because of just how brutal it is. Like I'm not saying like I get why people are dark triad because
Yeah,
it's like
you get it. You say you
yeah, no,
really get
I'm
it.
not saying that I don't understand why people do it. I'm saying like you know because like this world is it's like bro, it's competition. It's like it's literally like the animal kingdom. You know, people have to hunt, people have to get resource. Like it's a competition, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I get why people are dark triad because you know, but at the same time, you know, like me personally, I'm just like triad. You know, deep down inside, I was born this way. You know, I'm not saying that
Yeah,
I've made my mistakes. You know, but I'm just saying like this is just the way I am, natural. Like
yeah.
I've tried to be dark triad. I've tried to like go
To
away
be
from all.
Mr. Meanie, to be a brute.
Yeah, it doesn't work because you could never follow through. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
you
like that too. Yeah, yeah, I could. Yeah,
so it doesn't work. Like you have to be born into like some kind of thing. Something has to your brain chemistry has to be rewired a certain way to be fully truly dark triad. Because if you bro, you just cripple yourself. Like you won't be able to follow through with it, like doing the actions, and it's just you can't deny your nature. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were born light triad, then that's that. There's nothing you can do about it, really. You know what I'm saying? Um, but what I'm saying is like for people like us that are light triad, like what kind of what do we do now? Because you know, like we won't necessarily we can't really fit in because it's like what are we supposed to do, right?
hmm.
And that's what I was thinking of the Ubermensch. You know, it's a concept. It's
Of
basically like
perfect perfection, basically, right?
it's more or less just it's like a sage. It's like the sage of the six paths. That's what I think that's the
He's
road that
basically perfection. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh yeah, my bad. That's the road that I think becoming a sage, you know, like becoming a mystical sage, you know, becoming the sage of the six paths, you know, that's the role that we have to, because it's like we have to kind of transcend in a way through knowledge, through information, um, because like yeah, that's kind of where we're being led to, man. If you have that calling in your life, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, this is what I'm thinking. The Ubermensch, you know, it's like a you know, you create your own, you embrace life, you overcome traditions. You know what I'm saying? Like it's it's like just basically mastering what your nature is. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, eventually that's what you're gonna have to end up as. You know, as an Ubermensch. Let's see if there's any photos. 1 second. Let me see. Oh my! If you got anything you want, let me know. Just let me know. So 1 second. So let me see. What is this? 1 second. I'm just finding a good photo. So yes, basically for the men that want to carve out their own a new path. You know what I'm saying? Like because man, what's the other path that's outlined for us? You know, like you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like it's just dark triad maxing, but it's like how do you do it if you don't have if it's not in your nature? You know what I'm saying? Um, let's see, let's see. I'm looking for a nice photo. Where is it? Ubermensch. I think it's a German word as well. Ubermensch, you know. One second. Ubermensch. Let me get the photo real quick. So, 1 second. So, remove. Sorry, 1 second. My bad. So, stop screen. Let me find a better photo. I'm trying to find a nice photo. How to become Ubermensch, you know. So, 1 second. Ooh, sorry, I'm looking through these photos, man. That's a cool T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Photo. What is going on? Oh, that looks badass. Yeah, but this is like a K-pop star, so like there's nothing to do with this. No, that's the wrong tab. 1 second, sorry. So share screen. And there it is. Boom. The Ubermensch. You know what I'm saying? Let's see if I can. Boom. There it is. You know? Ubermensch. You know what I'm saying? It's like striving for a new ideal of what it means to be a man. You know? Because the traditional ways of being a man is kind of it's kind of
Correct.
it's a trap, or it's like it's just slowly being becoming outdated. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't even, bro. What's the only advantage that you have as a man? Like we're not necessarily smarter than Floyd's per se. Some of us are. The only advantage that we have is that we're stronger than Floyd's. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like we're bigger, stronger, capable of violence, right? But in modern society, bro, it's just like you can't even use that advantage. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't really use it. You know, um, because it's like you can only use it. You can only use it in a very specific, and even then, it's still like it's pointless. You know, so it's like the traditional idea of being a man is kind of just going away. You know, um, so now it's kind of just like now we have to figure out what what the new man is going to be like. You know, like we're on the frontier of discovering what this new man is. You know, what the new man is going to live like. You know, the, what the new Ubermensch, what the Ubermensch will be like. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Did you have anything you want to add, or so stop here? So good. And share screen. And there we go. Okay. This back at the screen.
But there was a way to figure out essentially who exactly was right, which is where the Talmud comes in. The Talmud, also known as the Gemara, takes chunks of the Mishnah at a time, quoting the different disagreeing opinions, and tries to figure out who has the correct one. They cite biblical sources as proofs, different teachings recorded from other sources, old personal anecdotes as to the actual actions of sages from decades prior, and usually just plain old logic, pitting these opinions against each other to see which ones remain standing, which is where things get a bit more confusing. The Talmud gets sidetracked pretty much all the time. It was basically written by stenographers, essentially recording a bunch of these sages arguing back and forth about these topics, and basically everything discussed got written down, including totally off topic points. So they go on about personal anecdotes, general life advice, Roman politics, stories, interpretations of biblical verses, points on angels and demons and the supernatural, health and medicine, advice, and a lot of personal opinions. In fact, because of this, a lot of the most famous characters or teachings or stories in all of Judaism come from this era in the Talmud. However, there is a very important point in all this, which is pretty much nobody agrees with anybody on anything. If a statement is made in the Talmud, there's pretty much a 90% chance that another sage holds basically the exact opposite opinion. And it's not always that that's the law. With something as simple as lighting the menorah on Hanukkah, there's one opinion that says to light it the way we do now, one candle on the first night, two on the second, three on the third, etc. And like a line away or so, it says a totally different opinion to do the exact opposite, to light 8 candles on the first night and do one less each night after, which is not the opinion we hold like. That's why you have to be careful with reading the Talmud, because a massive percentage of this entire text, due to the nature of what it is, why it exists, and how it was written, just simply is not the law of Judaism. There are so many quotes and opinions, and there are some pretty serious hot takes in there, some of which are fundamentally important in Jewish belief, and a massive amount which are simply decided to not be the law, literally just lines apart from the ones we hold like. So it's a very difficult book to read, particularly due to its extremely obtuse nature, and the fact that it's written, as mentioned, almost entirely in ancient Aramaic. This is because this Talmud was written in Babylon. I say this Talmud because there are actually 2 Talmuds, one in Babylon, which is the more commonly studied one, and the other in Jerusalem, both of which basically go over the same topics. Those topics precisely are as follows. There are about 40 books in the Talmud, each usually referred to as a tractate or a Masechta. Each covers a fundamental concept in Jewish law. There's Tractate Barachos, the first, covering laws of prayer and blessings. Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos. There's several on holidays, including Rosh Hashanah, Yom for Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Megillah for Purim, and others. There are the laws of marriage, marriage documents, divorce documents, court, inheritance and property, finding and returning lost objects, laws of repayment for damaging somebody's property, and others. Interestingly, ever since the temple was destroyed, some major fields of Jewish law largely became no longer too practically relevant. The laws of temple sacrifices, which has about a quarter of the entire Talmud dedicated to it, laws of tithes and similar, which is brought up very frequently in basically every book, and many of the laws of purity and impurity, some of which still apply and are very important today, but most of them lack practical relevance. But the Talmud is very long. Each of these books are individually massive, and the general track of learning a portion daily has you finish the entire Talmud once every 7.5 years. Now, you might ask, what's the point of learning this when you can just learn the final conclusions of all the laws? Which is valid. If you want to do that, just get the final conclusive laws of Judaism as a whole. You'd probably want to look at Maimonides, the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, which codified basically all of Jewish law, but the Talmud is still relevant. It's just very interesting. There's a lot of fascinating debate and argument and a lot of wisdom in these texts. B, it does have practical relevancy. It's important to know the logic and sources behind all of our laws for things like modern technology, discussions on electricity, bikes, trains, and recently things like lab-grown meat or AI all have a place somewhere in Jewish law, and they're definitely not mentioned by Maimonides. So a lot of the logic is necessary to analyze to figure out what the law is for many things nowadays. And C, simply, it's Torah, and the Torah must be studied, even if not all of it is held as the law we follow in practice. I mean, besides for that, because of all the different opinions in the Talmud, not every single argument is unanimously concluded. Hence why to this day there are so many sects of Judaism that hold more stringent or more lenient approaches in particular areas of Jewish law. Small things like whether you're allowed to eat rice on Passover. Alright, briefly, what does it actually look like inside? This might seem like a lot, so I'll try to break it down simply. This is page 1 of Tractate 1 of the entire Talmud. This section over here is the quoted portion of the Mishnah, the topic of debate here on the laws of when to say the Shema prayer. Beneath it here is the Talmud itself, which is discussing those laws mentioned in the Mishnah. To the side is Rashi, basically the foremost commentary on the entire Talmud and the entire Torah, just explaining cases and asking and answering questions if it's relevant. And to the other side is Tosfos, Rashi's grandchildren, another commentary, usually debating with Rashi and asking other questions and points. Everything else on the sides is just additional later commentaries or sources. The page number is over here at the top. Page numbers are a little bit odd here. Instead of going 2, 3, 4, 5, it goes 2A, and then on the other side of the page 2B, then 3A, then 3B, etc. And this style of formatting repeats across the entire Talmud. So it's pretty complicated. Or you could just pull up one of the many English translations online or watch a class or something. To begin with, however, I feel like it might be necessary to just provide a bit of background information on the general laws of prayer in Judaism. The main principle is that you need to say the Shema prayer, a very important verse which speaks about several fundamental concepts in Judaism, particularly accepting God over you. Generally, it's meant to be said while wearing the tefillin, which are these, and it's meant to be said at least twice a day, once in the evening and once in the morning. Specifically, there are 3 prayers said in Judaism: the morning prayer, the afternoon prayer, and the evening prayer. Now, besides for the Shema prayer, which is said by the morning and the evening one, there is also the Amidah, which is a bit of a longer prayer, which is said by all 3. Those are really the main parts of prayer, which is predominantly what's being discussed about during this entire book in the Talmud, and that predominantly makes up the basis, at least for the first 5 chapters of this entire book. Tractate Brachos opens by quoting the Mishnah in regards to the designated times of saying the evening Shema prayer, one of the most fundamental prayers in all of Judaism. There are several opinions as to the times that this prayer is said. Rabbi Eliezer says from the time that the priests serving in the temple would eat of their truma, which was a special designated holy food, until the end of the first watch, which will be defined later. Opinion 2 is the rabbis, who say it's until midnight, and the last opinion is Rabban Gamliel, who says you have until dawn. This is seen in a story where his sons came back really late from a wedding hall, and he told them that they could still say Shema as it wasn't yet dawn. In fact, Rabban Gamliel holds that, as the rabbis said, you have until midnight, they actually always mean until dawn by all instances, even with temple sacrifices, which had limited times, and they only said until midnight to be safe and not have people wait until the last second for things. And that's the end of the Mishnah. Now to the Gemara discussing this piece. First of all, 2 questions. What's our source for saying a Shema prayer in the evening at all? And why are we discussing the evening one first? Why not the morning Shema first? 2 answers are offered, both citing verses from the Torah in regards to the Shema. It says, when you lie down and when you get up. And by the creation of the world, it says the verse, and there was evening and there was morning, implying 1, that Shema is said in the evening, as it says when you lie down, and 2, based on the order in the verses, the evening one is discussed first. And in fact, the day in the Hebrew calendar actually starts by night because of all this. Question: but later on, when the blessings of the Shema are discussed, it mentions the morning Shema first, not the evening one. Answer is, after we've discussed and established that evening goes first, we can revert to using morning first later on. Okay, question. That first opinion, Rabbi Eliezer, said that the time starts by the priests eating their teruma. When exactly is that? It's when the stars come out. So why didn't they just say that? Because he wanted to also establish that the time that the priests eat their teruma is actually at this time of the stars going out. Okay, we're going to get a bit sidetracked now and discuss priests and their teruma food. Basically, in the times of the temple, the priests would eat their special holy teruma food, but they had to be pure in order to do so, which had a number of rituals in order to become purified in such a manner. They had to wash themselves, they had to bring an atonement offering, and they had to wait for the day to end. The verse states, "And the sun sets, and it is purified," in regards to them eating their teruma. Implication is that to be able to eat their teruma, they just
This is kind of like a summary, but I'm looking for the actual. I want to actually hear. Let's see. I want to actually hear the words of the book. You know what I'm saying? So on with the Babylonian one.
Brief general introduction to the Babylonian Talmud. On this, the time, Rabbana Jose conducted his college only 17 years, being too short for a proper and critical review of P19. Each and every subject, many theories were surreptitiously added by its enemies, with the purpose of making it detestable to its adherents. Of such character is the expression, that of Arashi is a fabrication.
Enactments of the rabbinical law. The Mishnah enumerates 39 abhathor. Is this not contradictory to the verse, 2?
Why do only 0.2%?
Okay, we'll watch this, and then we'll see. Because I'm looking for like the actual information that's useful. You know.
Of the world's population control a disproportionate share of global wealth? Why have the Jewish people, through millennia of persecutions, dispersions, and countless new beginnings from nothing, consistently emerged as leaders in finance, science, the arts, and entrepreneurship? The answer is not found in conspiracy or luck. It lies in a prosperity consciousness system quietly passed down through generations. This audiobook reveals the timeless principles that transformed a wandering people into masters of abundance. It is not about religion, but about mental programming. It is not about rituals, but about neurological patterns. It is not about tradition, but about consciousness technology. You will discover how concepts such as Shabbat reprogram your mind for abundance, how the practice of tzedakah activates the universal laws of reciprocity, and how the philosophy of tikkun olam, repairing the world, aligns your energy with the infinite flow of prosperity. Each chapter unveils a specific principle of Jewish wisdom, translating it into modern language and practical application for your life. Through fascinating stories of families who rebuilt fortunes after the Holocaust, of immigrants who arrived with nothing and created empires, and of Kabbalistic principles that echo in the discoveries of quantum physics, you will understand that prosperity.
Okay, this sounds like it's up my alley. I've always had an interest in like quantum physics. Uh, you know, things that I find interesting. So, yeah, this actually sounds interesting. I'm not gonna lie.
Is not accidental. It is a frequency you can tune into. This is not a book about getting rich quick. It is about fundamentally transforming your relationship with abundance, reprogramming your deepest beliefs about money and value, and aligning your identity with the consciousness of unlimited prosperity. It is about understanding that wealth is not something you chase. It is something you become. Prepare to question everything you've been taught about money and to discover the prosperity codes tested over 5,000 years of history. Chapter 1: The Consciousness of Abundance, the Mental DNA of Prosperity. Have you ever wondered why certain families seem to attract wealth generation after generation, while others remain trapped in cycles of financial struggle, regardless of how hard they work? The answer isn't.
That's interesting as well, because what do you always hear? If you wanna be successful, you have to work hard, work hard. But the thing is, man, I'll give people their credit. Most people that I see working jobs are are hard workers. Like, most people are hard workers, you know? I'll give people their credit. Most people that I see, at their jobs and stuff, when I'm doing my thing, most people are working hard, bro, you know? But only so few reap true rewards of this earth. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to be looking into why exactly that is. So, I mean, yeah, well, I think, well, in my, well, when it comes to success, I think that your success is directly determined by your ability to focus. So, the longer you can focus for, the more successful you'll be. You know. So if you can focus for long hours, focus plus long hours equals success. Uh, you know. Let's continue though. This is very interesting. Like, this is very different from my. Usually, my content is very hyperreal, hyperbolic, dystopian, just conspiracy. But this is more of like an uplifting, kind of like a more, you know, it's more of an uplifting message. So, more of like a, interesting. We will be looking more into the Talmud for sure, because I feel like it's very, very, why is it so hush hush? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it so hush hush? Yeah.
In their bank accounts, their connections, or even their circumstances. It's in something far more profound, something that exists in the invisible realm of consciousness before it ever manifests as physical money. It's in their mental DNA, their prosperity operating system, the unconscious beliefs and patterns that determine what they can see, what they can receive, and ultimately, what they can become. Let me tell you about Rachel's grandmother. She arrived in New York in 1949 with nothing but a small suitcase and the clothes on her back. Everything else had been taken, destroyed, lost in the chaos of war. She spoke no English. She had no money, no connections, no safety net. By any logical measure, she should have lived a life of poverty and struggle. Instead, within 15 years, she owned 3 successful businesses. Within 25 years, she had put all 4 of her children through university. Within 30 years, she had created a foundation that still funds scholarships today. When Rachel asked her grandmother how she did it, the old woman smiled and said something that would change Rachel's life forever. "Darling, I never lost what mattered most. I carried the real treasure with me the whole time, right here in my mind. That treasure wasn't positive thinking or wishful fantasy. It was something far more tangible."
One second. I like that a lot. I like that a lot more than I like. It wasn't no, just copium. It was, yeah, no, I like that a lot, bro. that was actually very very refreshing to hear. It's not the standard, you know, standard. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, writing dues. Yeah, no, that was interesting.
Far more powerful. It was a complete system of beliefs, attitudes, and mental patterns about prosperity that had been transmitted through her family for thousands of years. It was the consciousness of abundance, and it operated like an invisible blueprint that shaped every decision, every action, every response to circumstances. While others saw obstacles, she saw opportunities. While others felt scarcity, she felt flow. While others believed they had to fight for every scrap, she knew there was always enough and more coming. This is the secret that has allowed the Jewish people to thrive against impossible odds for 5,000 years, through expulsions from over 80 countries, through systematic persecution, through the loss of everything material again and again. They maintained something that could never be taken away, a consciousness of prosperity so deeply embedded that it functions almost like genetic code, passed from generation to generation, creating patterns of success that seem miraculous to outside observers, but feel completely natural to those who carry them. Here's what most people misunderstand about wealth. They think it's about what you do. Work harder, get a better job, start a business, invest wisely. But all of those actions are downstream from something more fundamental. Your actions are determined by your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your perception. Your perception creates your reality. If your unconscious mind is programmed with scarcity, limitation, and fear around money, it doesn't matter how many strategies you learn or how hard you work. You'll sabotage yourself at every turn. You'll miss opportunities that are right in front of you. You'll find yourself back at the same level of struggle, wondering why nothing ever changes. The Jewish tradition understood this truth thousands of years before neuroscience could prove it. They understood that prosperity isn't something you chase, it's something you become. It's not about accumulating money. It's about transforming your identity into someone who naturally attracts, creates, and multiplies abundance. They built an entire system of practices, beliefs, and teachings designed specifically to program the mind for prosperity, to create neural pathways that automatically move toward abundance rather than away from it. Think about this. Modern neuroscience tells us that our brains are incredibly plastic, constantly rewiring themselves based on repeated thoughts and experiences. Every time you think a thought, you strengthen a neural pathway. Every time you feel an emotion, you create a chemical signature in your body. Every time you take an action from a particular state of consciousness, you reinforce that state. This means your brain is literally being programmed every single day, creating patterns that become automatic, unconscious, effortless. The question isn't whether you're being programmed. The question is, what are you being programmed for? Scarcity or abundance? Limitation or possibility? Fear or faith? The Jewish consciousness of abundance is built on several foundational beliefs that operate so deeply they're often invisible even to those who carry them. The first is this: the universe is fundamentally abundant. There is always enough. Not just barely enough, but more than enough. Overflowing sufficiency, infinite supply. This isn't naive optimism or spiritual bypassing. It's a core operating principle that changes everything. When you truly believe there is always enough, you stop operating from panic and desperation. You stop seeing life as a zero-sum game where someone else's gain is your loss. You start noticing opportunities that were always there but invisible to the scarcity-programmed mind. The second foundational belief is that you have intrinsic value regardless of your current circumstances. Your worth isn't determined by your bank account, your possessions, or your social status. You are valuable simply because you exist, because you carry within you unique gifts and capacities that the world needs. This belief creates a radically different relationship with money. Instead of seeking money to prove your worth, you naturally attract money because you're already operating from a place of worthiness. You don't beg, you don't grovel, you don't diminish yourself. You offer value because you are valuable, and you expect to be compensated fairly because that's the natural exchange. The third foundational belief is that wealth is meant to flow, not to stagnate. Money is like water. It needs to circulate to stay healthy. Hoarding creates stagnation. Generosity creates circulation. And circulation creates more abundance. This is why charitable giving isn't just a nice thing to do in Jewish tradition. It's considered essential to prosperity. The act of giving, especially when it feels slightly uncomfortable, signals to your unconscious mind that you have more than enough. It programs you for abundance rather than scarcity. It keeps your energy in a state of flow rather than fear. But here's where it gets really interesting. These beliefs aren't just philosophical concepts. They're encoded into daily practices, weekly rhythms, annual cycles, and life milestones. They're reinforced through stories told at dinner tables, through rituals performed in homes, through community celebrations and mutual support systems. They become so integrated into the fabric of life that they're absorbed unconsciously, especially by children who watch their parents and grandparents embody these principles naturally. Consider the practice of Shabbat, which we'll explore deeply in the next chapter. On the surface, it's a day of rest, but at a deeper level, it's a weekly reprogramming session for abundance consciousness. By stopping all work for a full day, you're telling your unconscious mind that your worth doesn't depend on your productivity. By celebrating regardless of your current circumstances, you're affirming that life is fundamentally good. By trusting that taking a full day off won't destroy your business or career, you're demonstrating faith in abundance rather than fear of scarcity. Every single week, this pattern is reinforced. Every single week, the neural pathways of abundance are strengthened. Or consider the approach to education. In Jewish culture, learning isn't just about getting a degree to get a job. It's considered the highest form of wealth because it's the only wealth that can never be taken away. You can lose your money, your property, your business. You can be forced to flee your country with nothing but the clothes on your back. But you can't lose what you know, what you've learned, the skills you've developed. This creates a radically different relationship with learning. Education becomes an investment in portable, permanent wealth. It becomes something you pursue with the same intensity that others might pursue money, because you understand that knowledge creates opportunities that generate wealth regardless of circumstance. The consciousness of abundance also changes how you perceive challenges and setbacks. When Rachel's grandmother lost everything in the war, she didn't see herself as a victim of circumstances. She saw herself as someone in between chapters, someone who had built success before and would build it again. The external circumstances had changed, but her internal operating system remained intact. She still knew how to create value, how to serve others, how to spot opportunities, how to build relationships, how to persist through difficulties. The money was gone, but the consciousness that created the money was still fully present. This is the crucial distinction that most people miss. They think wealthy people have money, but the truth is, wealthy people have wealth consciousness, and the money is simply the natural result of that consciousness. Take away the money, and if the consciousness remains, the money return. But give money to someone with poverty consciousness, and it disappears faster than you can imagine. This is why lottery winners often end up broke within a few years. This is why inheritances can destroy families instead of blessing them. This is why some people can lose everything and rebuild within months, while others never recover from a single setback. Your consciousness is your true wealth. It's the mental and emotional patterns that determine what you notice, what you believe is possible, what actions you take, what you expect, what you accept, and what you reject. Change your consciousness, and your circumstances must follow. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual fantasy. This is how the mind works. This is how reality is constructed. Your brain is constantly filtering billions of bits of sensory information, selecting what to pay attention to based on your beliefs and expectations. You literally see a different world than someone with a different consciousness. The opportunities you notice, they miss. The possibilities you feel excited about, they feel intimidated by. The risks you're willing to take, they can't even imagine. So how do you transform your consciousness from scarcity to abundance? How do you reprogram the deep patterns that have been running your life, often since childhood? This is what the rest of this book is about. Each chapter will reveal a specific principle from Jewish wisdom and show you exactly how it works to reprogram your mind for prosperity. You'll discover practices that have been tested across thousands of years and millions of people, refined through countless challenges and proven in every imaginable circumstance. But I want you to understand something crucial right now, before we go any further. This transformation is possible for you. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your current circumstances are, what mistakes you've made, or how many times you've tried and failed before. The consciousness of abundance isn't genetic. It's learned. It's transmitted through teaching and practice, through repetition and reinforcement, through decision and commitment. If Rachel's grandmother could carry it through hell itself and use it to rebuild everything from nothing, then you can certainly develop it from wherever you are right now. The question is, are you willing to let go of the scarcity programming that feels so familiar? Are you willing to challenge the beliefs about money and worth that you've carried your whole life? Are you willing to try on a completely different operating system and see what becomes possible? Because here's the truth. You can't create abundance from scarcity consciousness. You can't manifest prosperity while believing in limitation. You can't become wealthy while feeling poor. The transformation must happen first in your mind, in your beliefs, in your sense of identity. Then, and only then, does the external world reorganize itself to match your internal reality. This is the secret that Rachel's grandmother knew. This is the treasure she carried through impossible circumstances. This is the inheritance she passed down to her children and grandchildren. And this is what you're about to claim for yourself, not through magical thinking or empty affirmations, but through a systematic reprogramming of your deepest beliefs and patterns, using principles that have created prosperity for thousands of years across every imaginable circumstance. You're not learning how to get rich. You're learning how to become someone for whom prosperity is natural, inevitable, and permanent. You're not acquiring techniques. You're transforming your identity. You're not chasing abundance. You're aligning yourself with the infinite flow that has always been present, waiting for you to recognize it, accept it, and allow it to express itself through your life. The consciousness of abundance is your birthright. It's not reserved for a chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to do the inner work of transformation. It's waiting for you right now, in this moment, to make the decision that everything is about to change. Not because your circumstances will magically shift overnight, but because you're about to shift. And when you shift, everything shifts with you. Welcome to the most important journey of your life. Welcome to the transformation from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to possibility, from struggle to flow. Welcome to the consciousness that has created miracles for 5,000 years and is about to create miracles in your life. Let's begin. Chapter 2. Shabbat, the power of stopping to prosper. There's a paradox at the heart of prosperity that most people never understand. The harder you chase it, the more it eludes you. The more desperately you work, hustle, and grind without pause, the further you push abundance away. It's like trying to catch water in your fists by squeezing harder. The tighter you grip, the faster it flows through your fingers. This is why one of the most powerful prosperity practices ever created seems, on the surface, to be the exact opposite of what you'd expect. It's not about doing more. It's about stopping completely. Every Friday evening as the sun begins to set, millions of people around the world engage in what might be the most counterintuitive wealth-building practice in human history. They stop working. Completely. For a full 25 hours, they cease all productive activity. No emails, no business calls, no projects, no hustle. In our modern world, where everyone is glorifying the grind, celebrating sleepless nights, and wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor, this practice seems almost reckless. How can you afford to take a full day off every single week? What about the opportunities you'll miss? What about the competitors who are working while you rest? What about the momentum you'll lose? But here's what's actually happening during Shabbat, and why it's one of the most sophisticated consciousness programming tools ever developed. You're teaching your nervous system that your value doesn't depend on your productivity. You're rewiring your brain to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. You are creating space for the invisible work of manifestation to occur. You're aligning yourself with the natural rhythm of creation itself, which alternates between action and rest, expansion and integration, doing and being. Let me tell you about David, a client who came to me burned out, broke, and broken. He was a real estate agent working 7 days a week, available to clients 24 hours a day, convinced that if he just worked harder and longer than everyone else, he'd finally break through to the success he was chasing. Instead, he was exhausted. His relationships were falling apart, and despite all his effort, his income had been declining for 2 years. He was living proof that hard work alone doesn't create prosperity. In fact, hard work from a state of desperation, fear, and depletion often creates the opposite. I asked David to try something that seemed insane to him. Take every Saturday completely off. No work, no exception. He looked at me like I'd suggested he burn his business down. "I can't afford to take a day off," he said. "I'm already struggling. I need to work more, not less." But I explained to him what I'm about to explain to you. His constant grinding was creating a consciousness of scarcity that was repelling the very prosperity he was chasing. His nervous system was stuck in survival mode, operating from fear and desperation, and that energy was seeping into every interaction, every presentation, every negotiation. People could feel it, even if they couldn't name it, and it was pushing them away. Reluctantly, David agreed to try it for 4 weeks. The first Saturday was torture for him. He felt guilty, anxious, convinced he was making a terrible mistake. But by the 3rd week, something started shifting. He noticed he felt different when he returned to work on Sunday. He was calmer, clearer, more creative. Ideas came more easily. He enjoyed his work again instead of grinding through it. By the 8th week, his income had increased by 40%. By 6 months, he'd doubled his previous year's earnings while working fewer hours. What changed? Not his tactics, not his strategies, not his work ethic. His consciousness changed. He stopped operating from scarcity. and started operating from abundance, and everything else followed. Shabbat works because it addresses something fundamental about how your brain processes reality and creates your experience of life. Your nervous system has two primary modes: sympathetic, which is your fight-or-flight stress response, and parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest relaxation response. When you're in chronic stress, constantly pushing and striving without pause, your sympathetic nervous system dominates. Your brain literally narrows its focus to threats and problems. Your creativity shuts down. Your ability to see opportunities diminishes. Your decision-making becomes reactive rather than strategic. You're essentially operating with a fraction of your mental capacity, grinding away with the parking brake on. But when you intentionally create space for rest, for ease, for stopping, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Your brain shifts into a completely different mode of operation. Your prefrontal cortex comes back online, giving you access to higher-level thinking, creativity, and strategic planning. Your field of awareness expands, allowing you to notice opportunities and connections you were blind to before. Your body begins to heal and regenerate. Your emotional state shifts from anxiety and stress to peace and confidence. And here's the crucial part. This state of being is magnetic. When you're operating from rest rather than stress, from abundance rather than scarcity, from confidence rather than desperation, you naturally attract better opportunities, better relationships, better outcomes. This is the hidden technology of Shabbat. It's not just a nice religious practice or a quaint tradition. It's a neurological reset button, pressed weekly, that keeps you from getting trapped in the scarcity consciousness that destroys prosperity. It's a forced interruption of the patterns that keep most people stuck in struggle. It's a weekly reminder that the universe doesn't need your constant effort to function, that there's an intelligence and flow far greater than your individual will, and that your role is to align with that flow, rather than fight against it through sheer force. Think about the act of creation in the Genesis story, regardless of whether you take it literally or metaphorically. 6 days of creation, followed by 1 day of rest. Not because God was tired, but because rest is part of the creative cycle itself. Creation requires both action and integration, both doing and being, both expansion and consolidation. Without the pause, without...
Yeah, very interesting stuff, though. Very, very interesting stuff. Seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But you know, the Shabbat thing. This is something I've been doing for a long time. You know? I never work Saturdays. Um, I usually try and take Saturdays off. Ideally, you want to stop at 5 p.m. on Friday, and yeah, then that's when you should stop working from 5 p.m. Friday all the way to 5 p.m. the next day on Saturday. That's the ideal time period. You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, I mean that's what I try. That's what I try and do. I usually just take Saturdays off, but the original Shabbat, if I look it up right now, so Shabbat. So when the Shabbat, when does Sabbath start? Sabbath. So Sabbath or Shabbat start? So Friday sundown. So it's Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. That's usually how Shabbat starts. So you're not supposed to work from Friday evening to Saturday evening. So Friday, usually I put it as Friday 5 p.m. to Saturday 5 p.m. You know, that's usually when you're supposed to stop all work. You know, and that's your time to rest. You know, um, and I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with all of this stuff. What I am saying is that, you know, there is many pieces to the puzzle. So me, I'm not a Christian. You know, I'm not a religious person per se. You know, but I do believe in the Creator. You know, I just prefer to use his original names. You know, I like to use the name Alua Yahuwah, um, you know, Yeshua and Raush Hakodesh. I like to use the original names because that way, when I do invoke those names, I know that the energy is going to those particular names. You know what I'm saying? And that's me. I would consider myself as a Hamashiacan. So, people say Christian for Christ, Christ follower of Christ. Well, I'm a follower of Yeshua Hamashiach or Yeshua Mashiach. Hamashiach. And you know what I'm saying? I follow Yeshua. You know, I like to use that name. I like to, follow his words, right? You know, he says be neutral. Um, he says to love your creator above all things, right? That's the first thing that he tells us to do is to love your creator. I love the Alua Yahuwah, right? And to believe in the Son, Yeshua, Mashiach, you know. These are things that I really, at my core, I really do believe in, you know. And, this is part of me, because the thing is, the truth is often, it's often polymath. It's often a polymath situation where you find bits and pieces in so many different, like, various different industries. So, like, or various different types of, you know, uh, activities, whether that's poetry, whether it's sports, mathematics. You find pieces of truth, research, different religions. You find pieces of truth, right? And I think to unlock the reality of what the reality is, the hardcore truth, to unlock the 1 + 1 is 2, you have to kind of string along, polymath all these different bits and pieces of truth to come to the final conclusion. And this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. If you follow my channel, we're going to be moving more into this type of stuff, into the more Torah, real. See, the thing, that's why I'm thinking, that's what I'm saying. The thing is about this type of advice is it's actually functionally useful. You know what I'm saying? This stuff actually works. Like, this is actually useful stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, I want to go further and further into the Talmud and just get what we can. Obviously, we're not agreeing with everything in there, but we're going to see what we can find in there that's useful, and then continue to, grow and develop our knowledge base and just get access to the information that's being gatekept from us, because the information that's being gatekept from us is the information that we're supposed to know, the information that is out there on the web, or what is easily accessible information is not what will help you, but what will help you is information that is being gatekept from you. And this is what is in the Torah. This is what is in the Talmud, right? The Talmud will help you discover the information that has been gatekept from you. But I'll be right back. I just got to go, do some things. I'll be right back. Just give me some time. Okay, I'm back. Let us continue.
Without the space, without the rest, creation becomes chaotic and unsustainable. The same principle applies to your life and your prosperity. If you're constantly in action mode, constantly pushing and striving, you never create space for integration, for the invisible work of manifestation, for the universe to deliver what you've been working toward. Here's what most people don't understand about manifestation. The actual creation happens in the space between actions, not during the actions themselves. Your actions plant seed, but the growth happens in the unseen realm when you step back and allow it. When you're constantly digging up the seed to check if it's growing, you prevent the very growth you're anxious to see. Shabbat is the practice of stepping back, of trusting the process, of allowing the invisible forces of creation to work while you rest in faith, rather than striving in fear. The practice also rewires your relationship with time itself. When you're trapped in scarcity consciousness, time feels like your enemy. There's never enough of it. You're always behind, always rushing, always stressed about what you haven't done yet. But when you can take an entire day every week and do absolutely nothing productive, you're making a radical statement. Time is abundant. There's enough time for everything that matters. You don't need to squeeze every second dry. This shift in your relationship with time changes everything. You become more present, more focused, more effective during your working hours. You stop wasting energy on anxiety about time and start investing that energy in actual creative work. Let me tell you about Sarah, a corporate executive who discovered Shabbat accidentally during a forced sabbatical after a health crisis. For 20 years, she'd worked 60 to 70 hours a week, convinced that's what it took to stay competitive. She'd missed her children's milestones, sacrificed her health, and barely maintained her marriage, all in service of a career that, while successful by external measures, left her feeling empty and exhausted. The health crisis forced her to stop completely for 3 months, and during that time, she discovered what happened when she wasn't constantly doing. The first few weeks were hell. She didn't know who she was without her work. She felt guilty, useless, anxious. But as the weeks passed, something extraordinary happened. She started noticing things she'd been blind to for years. She reconnected with her creativity. She remembered dreams she'd abandoned. She felt emotions she'd been suppressing. And most surprisingly, she started getting insights about her work that were far more valuable than anything she'd come up with during her years of constant grinding. When she returned to work, she implemented a strict boundary. No work on Saturdays, no exceptions. Her colleagues thought she was committing career suicide. Instead, within a year, she'd been promoted to a position that had previously seemed impossible to reach, and she was working fewer hours than ever before. What Sarah discovered is what the practice of Shabbat has been teaching for thousands of years. Your best work doesn't come from constant effort. It comes from the integration of effort and rest, action and reflection, doing and being. When you create regular space for rest, you give your unconscious mind time to process, integrate, and synthesize everything you've been learning and experiencing. You give your creative intelligence space to emerge. You give the universe space to deliver the opportunities and connections you've been working toward. But Shabbat isn't just about personal benefit. It's also a practice of trust and faith. And these qualities are absolutely essential for prosperity consciousness. When you stop working for a full day every week, especially when business is slow or money is tight, you're making a declaration of faith. I trust that the universe will provide. I trust that my value doesn't depend on my constant productivity. I trust that there's enough, and there will continue to be enough. This might sound like spiritual bypassing or naive optimism, but it's actually a profound reprogramming of your deepest beliefs about security and provision. Most people's scarcity consciousness comes from a fundamental lack of trust. They don't trust that they're valuable. They don't trust that the universe is supportive. They don't trust that there's enough to go around. So they grip, control, hoard, and overwork, trying to force security through their own effort alone. But this very gripping is what prevents the flow of abundance. It's like trying to receive while your fists are clenched shut. Shabbat is the practice of opening your hands, literally and metaphorically, and trusting that what you need will come. Here's the practical magic of this. When you operate from trust rather than fear, from abundance rather than scarcity, you show up differently in every interaction. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. People respond to you differently. Opportunities appear that were always there but invisible to the scarcity-focused mind. You make better decisions because you're not operating from desperation. You attract better partnerships because you're not clinging and grasping. You create better outcomes because you're aligned with flow rather than fighting against it. The rhythm of Shabbat also creates something else that's crucial for sustained prosperity: sustainability. Most people approach wealth building like a sprint when it's actually a marathon. They burn themselves out in a few years of intense effort, then spend the next few years recovering, then repeat the cycle. This creates an exhausting roller coaster of boom and bust, success and burnout, progress and collapse. But when you build rest into your rhythm from the beginning, when you make it non-negotiable and regular, you create a sustainable pace that you can maintain for decades. You're playing the long game, building wealth that lasts, rather than chasing quick wins that evaporate. Think about the most successful people you know, truly successful. Not just wealthy, but fulfilled. Not just productive, but peaceful. Almost without exception, they've mastered the art of strategic rest. They understand that peak performance requires recovery. They know that clarity comes from space, not from constant mental activity. They've learned that creativity emerges in stillness, not in chaos. They've discovered what Shabbat has been teaching for millennia. Stopping is not the opposite of productivity. It's the foundation of sustainable, joyful, abundant productivity. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to adopt Shabbat in its traditional religious form, unless that resonates with you. But I am inviting you to consider the principle. What would happen if you took one full day every week and did absolutely nothing related to work or productivity? No emails, no planning, no hustling, no business calls. Just rest, joy, connection, celebration, presence. What would that do to your nervous system? What would that communicate to your unconscious mind? What would that shift in your energy and consciousness? Most people resist this idea because they're afraid. They're afraid they can't afford it. They're afraid they'll fall behind. They're afraid their business will collapse or their career will stall. But this fear itself is the problem. This fear is the scarcity consciousness that's blocking your prosperity. When you can face that fear, challenge it, and act in defiance of it by resting anyway, you're literally reprogramming your deepest beliefs about security, provision, and value. Start small if you need to. Maybe you can't imagine taking a full day off right now. That's okay. Start with a few hours. Every Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, or whatever day works for you, create a window of time where you do absolutely nothing productive. No checking your phone for business messages. No thinking about work problems. No planning your week. Just be, rest, enjoy, connect with people you love. Move your body in ways that feel good. Create something for pure joy with no goal or outcome. Read something that feeds your soul. Sit in nature and do absolutely nothing. Notice what happens. Notice the resistance that comes up. Notice the guilt, the anxiety, the voice that says you should be doing something productive. Don't fight these feelings. Just notice them. They're the scarcity programming revealing itself, and awareness is the first step in transforming it. Keep practicing. Week after week, create this space for rest. And as you do, pay attention to what shifts in your life, not just in your bank account, though that may shift too, but in your energy, your creativity, your clarity, your relationships, your sense of peace and well-being. This is the power of stopping to prosper. This is the wisdom encoded in Shabbat. This is the practice that has sustained prosperity consciousness through thousands of years of challenges and changes. You don't create abundance by working yourself into the ground. You create abundance by aligning yourself with the natural rhythm of creation, which includes rest as an essential component. You prosper not despite stopping, but because of stopping. The pause creates the space. The space creates the integration. The integration creates the transformation, and the transformation creates the prosperity you've been chasing through all your striving. Your worthiness isn't measured by your productivity. Your value isn't determined by your output. Your security doesn't depend on your constant vigilance. These are lies that scarcity consciousness tells you to keep you trapped in exhausting cycles of fear and struggle. The truth is simpler and more liberating. You are inherently valuable. The universe is fundamentally abundant, and your prosperity flows most easily when you're aligned with natural rhythms of both action and rest. Shabbat is the practice that keeps you aligned with this truth, week after week, year after year, until it becomes so deeply embedded in your consciousness that prosperity becomes your natural state of being. Stop chasing. Start allowing. Stop grinding. Start flowing. Stop proving. Start resting. This is the paradoxical path to prosperity that Shabbat teaches. This is the wisdom that has created sustainable wealth for thousands of years. This is the practice that will transform your relationship with work, worth, and wealth from the inside out. All you have to do is stop, regularly, completely, trustingly, and watch what unfolds in the space you create. Chapter 3. Tzedakah, the law of circulation and multiplication. There's a financial principle that seems to defy all logic, contradict every instinct of self-preservation, and violate the basic laws of mathematics. It says that the fastest way to increase your wealth is to give it away. Not someday when you're rich enough. Not the leftover scraps after you've taken care of everything else, but now. Regularly, systematically. Even when it feels uncomfortable. Even when you're not sure you can afford it. This principle is called tzedakah, and it's one of the most powerful prosperity technologies ever discovered. Most people approach giving from a place of guilt or obligation. They donate when they're asked, feel good for a moment, and then go back to their normal patterns of thinking about money. But tzedakah isn't charity in the way we typically understand it. The word doesn't even translate to charity. It translates to righteousness or justice. It's not about being generous or nice. It's about participating in the fundamental law of circulation that governs all abundance in the universe. It's about recognizing that wealth is meant to flow, not to stagnate, and that you position yourself in that flow through the act of giving. Let me tell you about Michael, a struggling entrepreneur who came to one of my workshops completely broke. He was 3 months behind on rent. His business was failing, and he was seriously considering giving up on his dreams and getting a regular job. During the workshop, I talked about tzedakah, about giving 10% of your income, regardless of your circumstances. Michael raised his hand and said what everyone in his situation thinks. That's easy to say when you have money. I literally can't afford to give anything away right now. I need every dollar just to survive. I looked at him and asked a question that changed his life. Can you afford 10% of nothing? He looked confused. So I continued, if you maintain your current consciousness, your current relationship with money, your current energy of scarcity and desperation, where will you be in 6 months? He thought about it and admitted he'd probably be in the same place, or worse. So you're already giving everything away, I said. You're giving it to fear, to scarcity, to the belief that there's not enough. The question isn't whether you can afford to give. The question is whether you can afford not to. Something shifted in Michael that day. He didn't have much, but he committed to giving 10% of whatever came in, no matter how small. The first week, he made $80 from a small freelance project. He took $8 and gave it to a homeless veteran he passed every day. It felt significant, even painful. That $8 could have bought him lunch for 2 days. But he did it anyway, and something happened that he couldn't explain. Within 3 days, a client he'd pitched months ago suddenly called and hired him for a project worth $3,000. Coincidence? Maybe, but it kept happening. Over the next 6 months, Michael religiously gave away 10% of every dollar that came in, and the dollars kept coming, faster and in larger amounts than ever before. Within a year, his business was thriving. Within 2 years, he was earning more than he'd ever imagined possible. What changed? Not his skills, not his market, not his circumstances. His consciousness.
Very, very interesting. This is good stuff, man. Good stuff. We will come back to finish this a bit later. I just want to finish off a bit of the. We're gonna do a lot. We're gonna do a lot more Talmud stuff soon. I just want to finish a bit more of this, and then just want to finish a bit more of this, and then we'll.
The Talmud is an ancient text written around 500 CE. If you pray behind a synagogue, you're considered wicked, as it's like you're viewing them with contempt, assuming you turned away from the synagogue. Otherwise, it's fine. There's a story where somebody did this, praying behind the synagogue, so Eliyahu the prophet saw him, drew a sword, and killed him. In fact, in regards to this wickedness, it's also considered very not good to view mitzvahs or prayer with contempt. This is based on a verse which has the word kerum, which we're interpreting as vileness. Some say it means a type of bird which changes its color, and there's reference to the embarrassment people feel when asking others for help, which apparently feels as bad as if you were punished with both fire and water and makes your face change colors. It's also said to be very particular with the afternoon prayer, as Eliyahu the prophet prayer over by the altar and the idolaters of Baal was answered by the afternoon prayer. By this, Eliyahu asked for God to answer him twice, once that fire should consume his offering, and the second so that the Israelites watching should believe that it was from God, but still be particular with the evening and morning prayer too. In regards to rejoicing at weddings, if you go and don't cause the groom to rejoice, you're in violation of a verse which speaks of 5 special voices right before the giving of the Torah, and if you do, you'll merit to acquire lots of Torah, and it's the same as if you had brought a Thanksgiving offering. One person says doing this is as great as rebuilding Jerusalem's ruins. Also says that if you have fear of heaven, your words are listened to, and it's as if the whole world was made just for you. Another teaching, if somebody wants to greet you, greet him first. And if he greets you and you ignore him, you're considered a robber. Also, we know God prays because it says in a verse, the house of my prayer. What does God pray for? That his mercy should overcome his anger and all of his other attributes, and that he should go beyond the letter of the law for them. In fact, the Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, said that on Yom Kippur, when he entered the innermost part of the temple to do the special Yom Kippur service, he saw an image of one of the names of God, who asked him to bless him, so he told him the above, and it was accepted. This teaches us to not take for granted even the blessings of an ordinary person. We can also learn to not try and placate somebody while they're in the middle of being angry, as God told Moshe after the whole golden calf incident to speak to him after he calmed down. This anger is daily, however, and it's for an incredibly short moment, specifically 158,888ths of an hour, once per day, or according to some, the length of time it takes to say the word rega. And No one's really figured out when this time is, besides for Balaam, and even then God decided to restrain his anger during that period, so Balaam's attempts at cursing the Jewish people had no effect. The general time period for this moment of anger apparently is somewhere within the first 3 hours of the day, when the sun whitens the crest of a rooster until it has no red streaks and it stands on one leg. So, whenever that is. In fact, there's a story about this one heretic who was annoying Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, so he decided to wait until this exact moment to curse this guy, but he kept sleeping through the time period, so he took it as a sign not to. Apparently, the source for this anger is when the kings of the world worship idolatry. It's also taught that a moment of true remorse is better than a bunch of lashes. It's also taught that Moshe requested 3 things: that the Shekhinah dwell upon Israel, not on the other nations, and that the ways God runs the world be revealed to him. All of these were granted, and he was told that a righteous person who prospers is a righteous person, the son of a righteous person who suffers is a righteous person, the son of a wicked person who prospers is a wicked person, the son of a righteous person, and a wicked person who suffers is a wicked person, the son of a wicked person. There's some verses referenced, some which say that people aren't punished for their ancestors' deeds, some which say that they are, and it's explained that the difference is whether you continue down their path and do as they did. So how could a righteous person suffer for his wicked ancestors? So rather, it's that a righteous person who prospers is a totally righteous person who suffers is a not totally righteous person, a wicked person who prospers is a not totally wicked person, and a wicked person who suffers is a totally wicked person. According to others, however, the way God conducts the world was not revealed at all to Moshe, so you can just disregard all of that. In fact, now that we're talking about Moshe, it says that as Moshe turned away from God's face by the burning bush, he never merited to fully see it again. This disagrees with the opinion that Moshe was actually rewarded for that humility with a glowing countenance, with the people fearing him, and that he got to sort of see the likeness of God later on. Specifically, Moshe got to see the back of God's head, meaning the knot of the tefillin right above your neck. We also know that all of God's promises are always fulfilled, as God offered Moshe to destroy the Jews and make him a massive nation, and although Moshe refused, Moshe's descendants ended up being more than all of the Israelites during this period, over 600,000. It's also taught that Abraham was the first person to call God Lord, and even Daniel's prayers way later were answered in Avram's merit. Similarly, no one thanked God for creating the world until Leah did so by the birth of Yehuda, hence his name, which comes from the word meaning thanks. Her first son, Reuven, was named that as it's a mix of 2 words, Reu and Ben, which means sea and sun. How her firstborn son was unlike another firstborn son, Esav. That, unlike him, Yosef, Reuven's brother, wound up with the firstborn rights, but Reuven wasn't upset about that, unlike Esav had been when the same thing occurred by him and Yaakov. On this note, Rus was named that because the word means to sate, which her descendant, David, did to God with his songs. In fact, based on another verse, it's established that your name can affect your life. Side point, the rabbi who taught this teaching also teaches that wayward children are as bad for your household as the war of Gog and Magog before Mashiach's coming. Back to King David, he opened the book of Tehillim by saying a psalm of David while fleeing from his son Avshalom. Why does it say a psalm and not a lament of David like other ones? Answer is because David knew something unfortunate would happen to his dynasty due to the incident with Bathsheba, so he was kind of relieved when he found out what it was, and that could have been way worse. This person, among others, teaches that you should provoke wicked people and not to be like them. Some say you actually should not provoke them, and the difference is established to be that you should leave them alone if it's with personal matters, but with matters of heaven, you should try to get them to do the right thing. Alternatively, it does refer to always, just leave them alone if they're doing successful, but if they're doing poorly in life, then you should advise them to do better. Or even more alternatively, you should do this in literally all cases, but it should only be done if you're completely righteous. If you're not, don't, as if he gets mad at you, you won't be fully protected. He also taught that if you have a fixed point for prayer, your enemies that want to afflict and then destroy you will fall beneath you. He also says that physically following the Torah is more important than its study, as Elisha is quoted by being complimented with his deeds, not his study. There's a quick story about a Rabbi Nachman who was sick and unable to pray in synagogue, and he decided not to ask people to come pray with him in his home, so he was told to find out what time everyone else was praying and to do it privately at the same time. This is because the time when the congregation is davening is considered a time of favor, and there's a few opinions which verse this is sourced from, or if it's from a teaching which says that God says that if you do acts of kindness and pray alongside the congregation, you're considered as if you redeemed the Jewish people and God. In fact, it's said that if you have a synagogue in your city and don't go, you're considered to be a wicked neighbor and are punished that you and your children will go to exile. As for why during this period some sages chose to live in Babylonia during this time, they were fine because they spent pretty much all day in the synagogue, so we learn from this that you should go early and late to the synagogue. Also, if you enter a synagogue, go to doorway lengths in. It's mentioned you should pray in a time of finding, and this is explained to mean that you should pray when you want to find a wife. And it was a custom in Israel that when somebody got married, you would ask them if their wife was akin to the verse which speaks about your wife being good and wonderful, or bitter and worse than death. Alternatively, the time of finding refers to finding Torah or to finding death in a peaceful manner. In fact, 903 types of death were created, the worst of which is cru, an exceptionally painful respiratory infection, and the easiest is the extremely painless kiss of death. Or, finding is a respectful burial, and said you should pray for mercy until the final shovelful of dirt is dumped on your grave. Alternatively, finding refers to a normal lavatory situation, which was less accessible in those days. It's taught that God loves the gates of study of Torah more than any other, and since the destruction of the temple, God is only within the 4 cubits of people studying Torah law. Based on this, many sages would only ever pray in the place where they studied. It's also said that if you benefit from your hard work, it's greater than somebody who has lots of fear in God but doesn't work. It's also said that you should live where your teacher lives because it'll prevent you from doing wrong, assuming you generally do what he says, otherwise it'll just lead to fights. Leaving the synagogue when the Torah scroll is taken out to be read is considered like you're forsaking God, and if you need to go out, just do so between readings. We're not really sure if you can leave in between the readings of the actual verses. One rabbi would actually just study as the Torah was being read, but others say you should read the Torah portion of the week also, actually twice, and the translation of Onkelos once, which is the custom that many do to this day. Usually right as Shabbos is starting, and the reward for this is a long life. One rabbi tried to make up all the weeks he had missed of this on Erev Yom Kippur, but he was told that he shouldn't, and it should just be done along with the week. In fact, in regards to the day before Yom Kippur, having a large meal the day before to prepare for the coming fast is considered like doing the fast itself. Okay, some actually totally unrelated points here. Be careful when cutting the jugular veins when slaughtering an animal, and also be careful to respect an old man who forgot his Torah knowledge due to his old age, as is comparable to both the unbroken and broken tablets that were stored within the ark. Then it says that the sage Rava taught his sons 3 pieces of advice. Don't cut meat while holding it, whether for the danger or it could ruin the food if you get cut. Don't sit on the bed of an Aramean woman, which is either a metaphor for not sleeping without saying Shema, or saying that it's preferable to marry a woman who was born Jewish, or perhaps it's literal, as there's a story that one time a Rav Papa was told by an Aramean woman to sit on her bed, and he refused, and then he found a dead baby there that he would have been accused of killing if he had sat down. His last teaching was to not pass by a synagogue while they're praying within, as it could be seen as disrespectful. The Rabbi Abaya says you can do this if there's multiple entrances because they'll just assume you're going in through the other entrance. The same applies if there's a different synagogue in the city or if you're carrying something heavy, running, or not wearing tefillin. Similarly, Rabbi Akiva taught 3 things he liked about the Medes: that they cut meat on a table and not on their hands, that they only kiss on the back of the hand, and that they hold counsel in private in the fields. Similarly, Rabban Gamliel says that there are 3 things he likes about the Persians: that they are modest in their eating, in the lavatory, and in intimacy. Okay, that was a lot, and just like that, we're finally going back to discussing Shema times. The last opinion was that of Rabban Gamliel, that you can say Shema until dawn. This is the opinion we follow. Technically speaking, you can actually say Shema twice, pretty much in a row by day, once right before dawn and once right after, and fulfill the evening and morning Shema obligations at once. Actually, right after dawn is still classified as night, but since people do get up then, and the obligation is to say it when you get up, it's permitted to say the morning Shema here. Again, this is the law. There's a very similar concept that you could say Shema twice in a row instead of before and after dawn. You can say it before and after sunrise, twice in a row during the day. Similar to the above, the time right before sunrise is still considered day, but it's referred to as night because some people do sleep then. So this is also the law. However, if you are going to wait until right before sunrise to say the evening Shema, don't say the conjoining blessing of Hashkivenu, which is about going to sleep, as it's the middle of the morning. Some learn this ruling from this source, while some learn this based on an inference where there is a story where some sages got drunk at a wedding and woke up right after dawn, but before sunrise, and they were told they could still say the evening Shema, but only in an emergency. Moving on, there was an incident mentioned way back at the beginning of the Mishnah where Rabban Gamliel's sons had gotten drunk at a wedding, and their father told them that they could say Shema as it wasn't yet dawn. But why did they ask? Shouldn't they already know that? So it's explained that they just wanted to know whether the rabbis agreed with their father fundamentally, which they do, and they were just being stringent. Next, it was mentioned that this ruling of Rabban Gamliel, that whenever the rabbis rule something is until midnight, they actually mean until dawn, and this is in reference to a lot of sacrifices which have strict time limits. This actually doesn't include the Paschal sacrifice, although some disagree, and say you do have until dawn for this one. The argument is based on a verse which says in reference to the sacrifice until midnight, implying you have until midnight, but it also says it should be eaten in haste, referencing the Jewish people rushing out of Egypt, which was at dawn. Also, it clarifies other parts of the verse, things like it says on that night, night meaning not by day, unlike other sacrifices, and that night meaning only on that specific holiday night and not across several days, although there is another opinion that says that you can eat it even until a second day. This entire argument actually happened at a different time, with their logic being based on different interpretations of verses. For instance, perhaps with haste actually means the Egyptians haste to rush the Jews out, which was done at midnight. Also, in regards to the exodus from Egypt, there's some discussion about God telling the Jews to go and ask the Egyptians for a ton of gold as they left, which they got. Specifically, God actually said, please do this, because he had promised Avram that the Jews would be enslaved and then they would leave with riches, and he wanted to fulfill this promise, even though the Jews just kind of wanted to leave already. Some say it was the Jews who weren't that into it because it was going to be a long journey and they didn't want to carry all that stuff. Some say it was the Egyptians based on a verse, but either way, they totally emptied the place out. Also, by the burning bush, God said, I will be that I will be, which was God telling Moshe that the same way God was with the Jews by this exile, so too by all future exiles, but Moshe only told of this current exile to the Jewish people. Then it repeats that teaching about Eliyahu and Avi that was said a bit earlier, and that's the end of this section. Okay, next Mishnah. When do we start saying Shema in the morning? At the point in time where you can distinguish between the colors light blue and white. Rabbi Eliezer says between light blue and green. You have until sunrise, but Rabbi Yeshua says you have until 3 hours into the day, the time when kings get up. If you say Shema after this time, it's fine. It's just as if you read some Torah, so you won't get in trouble. And now, the Gemara on this portion. The whole blue and white differentiation refers to being able to tell the difference between blue and white tzitzis, as they're smaller, and you could easily tell the difference at any time by, say, a large pile of wool. Some teach that it's a time where it's bright enough that you can tell the difference between a wolf or a dog, some the difference between a donkey and a wild donkey, and some when you can recognize a friend from 4 cubits away, which is actually the opinion we hold, according to some. Although some say we should only follow by the time we put on tefillin, and by saying Shema, we should be extra scrupulous and wake up extra early and finish saying the Shema by sunrise, which was done so that they could immediately start the day with the following blessing, which speaks of the redemption. And it's taught that if you do this, no harm will come to you during the entire day. Rabbi Zera said that he did this, and yet he was actually harmed during the day. But that wasn't any actual harm. He had to bring an honorary gift of myrtle branches to the king's palace, which he really had no interest in doing, so not actual harm. In fact,
Okay. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is mysticism. Some of these rituals are a bit like it is very restrictive. You know, very 4LP type of energy. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean that's the thing with this Torah. This Talmud things like we gotta pick what we can use. I mean, a lot of that stuff, yeah, it's useful, but I mean, it's a bit of a lot of it's a bit of it's fascinating. I'll give it that. It's fascinating. But anyways, I'm about to bounce, so thank you for the stream. I'll catch you guys another time. Peace. Yeah.